All right, and we are live. Hello, everyone. This is My Two Cents, and welcome back to my channel. About 2 weeks ago, prior to the Ben Shapiro refutation video, I did a stream with Night Shift and Falcon in which we just kind of had an open topic. And it was the topic of a tweet about Beauty and the Beast, which we will get to in a little bit. And I said, I put out a poll. Would anyone like me to do a stream where we talk strictly about a analysis of the Disney film Beauty and the Beast from a red pill perspective and talk about things like how do Disney movies and children's fantasies impact the view that we have as that our generation as adults has about romantic relationships and how they're supposed to be. So we will get to that in just a bit. But to start off this stream, I want to go ahead and take a look at an article that came out from Evie magazine on September 25th. I did tweet on my timeline that I was going to talk about this. And without further ado, let's get into it. I am joined, of course, by Night Shift 10,000. Night Shift, go ahead and say hello.
What's up, everyone?
All right, without further ado, so I've been talking a lot about the red pill topic as of late, and I have plenty more to say about it, especially in light of articles like this. Now, I don't know a lot about Evie magazine. I've seen a lot of their content, and it seems to me they're essentially a magazine for women that's coming at it from a right-leaning perspective and a allegedly anti-feminist perspective, but of course, they're just essentially a tradcon publication for women. So at the end of the day, despite claiming not to be feminists, they too believe in male disposability. They believe in female supremacy, and they believe that men ought to do more to try and get women for whatever reason. But that's my honest take on them. I can't say who the publisher is or what their personal goals are. We are, however, going to take a look at this particular article, Why the Rejected Men and Women Turn to the Red Pill Movement. Tagline, the manosphere and red pill communities are full of insecure, dejected men and women. Why is that? Now, first, before we even get into the article, I want to say this is a classic example of poisoning the well, which is a logical fallacy per se, but basically it's when you're about to talk about a subject, you overtly insult your opponent in a way that really isn't related to what their views actually are, to essentially bias your viewers against the position you're going to come against. Now, I have said repeatedly, the red pill is simply, there are many communities within the red pill, MGTOW, PUAs, incels, black pill, all that stuff, all of which have their own frame of reference and their own prescription for what men ought to do in the real world. The red pill is simply, do you accept the truth about male and female nature? And that's either, and those facts, men, again, number one, men are naturally polygamous, and absent moral, legal, or societal restraints, tend to pursue whatever romantic strategy allows them to have sex with the highest number of women possible. Women, on the other hand, are naturally hypergamous, and absent moral, legal, and societal restraints, tend to pursue whatever romantic strategy allows them to first have the most genetically superior and strong children with the most genetically superior, strongest man, and two, secure the most protection and provision from the man that is most able to provide and protect for her, not necessarily in the same man. Does that mean that men and women are robots and can't help but do anything but follow their basic natures? No. It's just to say that is what male and female nature is, and how they tend to behave, and how society structures itself, how laws are put in place, and how those things interact with these base natures are how we explain male and female behavior in the real world. This is not right or wrong. It's just the way it is. Now, someone like from Evie magazine, like this Nicole Dominique or anyone else writing, can disagree with that, fine. But you're going to have to give me, one, why do you think that's incorrect? And two, what paradigm do you think better explains male and female behavior in the real world? That's all it comes down to. Now, it could absolutely be a fact. I'm not saying it is, but it could be a fact that every person who accepts the red pill is some kind of broke loser who has never had a real relationship with a woman or a man, assuming it's a female who accepts the red pill, and they only found the community because of their bitterness, and the community is full of bitter people who have nothing going on in life. That could 100% be a fact. But tell me this, Night Shift, even if that's a fact, does that have anything to do with whether or not the red pill is an accurate description of reality?
No, absolutely not.
Absolutely not. And that's basically the point I want to make reviewing this article. Look, the truth is the truth, whether you like it or not. The truth is the truth, whether it's spoken from the mouth of a loser or someone that you consider to be a winner for whatever reason. And you know what? If you think everyone, and for all those that are criticizing, more and more men are waking up to the truth of the red pill. They're deciding that relationships with modern women are not worth it and they ought to live their lives in a way that benefits them. And modern women are freaking out about this. That's why you can see in publications like this, modern women are doing everything they can to crap all over the red pill and try and shame men back into the traditional way of thinking where men are told that they have a moral obligation to live their lives for the good of women. It makes sense that women will want this to happen. But as I've said before, shame is you use that shame weapon so much, it's starting to ring hollow. Men know we're going to get shamed no matter what. Calling me a loser who lives in his mother's basement and has nothing going on. One, you have no idea where I live or what I do for a living, so why should I care what your opinion is? And two, even if that's true, does that mean anything I've said is false? Absolutely not. If you're going to engage the idea, engage the idea. If you're going to insult the person who made the claim, well, then that really just shows you have no argument. And I do like what Rob says here. Social media has shined a light on how, and it absolutely has. And we'll actually get into that article. So without further ado, let's read what Nicole Dominique has to say here. The red pill movement has become incredibly predictable. The conventionally attractive women in this space frequently share their hot takes and criticize other girls while putting men on a pedestal. They tweet a lot about being traditional and how they desire to be a stay-at-home mom with kids and a strong husband, all the while grifting off their predominantly male followers, might I add. All right, I think it's safe to say she's referring about just pearly things there.
Yes.
Which, hey, fair
Yes.
enough. That's accurate. Now, that being said, again, truth is truth, regardless of who says it. I think Pearl happens to be a grifter making money off of desperate men. That being said, she says many true things, and even if Pearl is a horrible person and who is effectively stealing money from desperate men, that may be true, doesn't mean anything she necessarily says is false.
Exactly.
The men in the space do the same thing, but tend to rage bait more. They call the objectively gorgeous girls mid to farm engagements. They love using classical paintings or marble statues of Greek gods as their profile pictures. Sometimes they'll actually use an image of themselves and show off their fit physique. Usually these red pillars tweet all day, every day. I would guess it's because their friends are almost exclusively online. Okay, now again, suppose that's true. Suppose that most people who accept the red pill who are on X or other platforms live in their mother's basements and have no friends in the real world. Would that make anything they said untrue? No. Now, as to they call objectively gorgeous girls mid to farm engagement. Okay, fair enough. It is a common practice in red pill spaces to try and humble beautiful girls effectively. When girls post these, and it is a very attractive girl, a lot of whether they consider themselves MGTOWs, PUAs, black pillars, a lot of people in this space will comment, I think she's just a 4, I think she's just a 5. And by and large, they're doing it because they know it'll get engagement.
Right.
But isn't it a little hypocritical to say all they're doing is to get engagement? Because let me ask you a question. The girl who posted the selfie, why do you think she posted it?
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing, is that saying that all men in that space do that just to be asshats, that almost shows an element of butthurtness on the writer of the article, because there are some guys that do make comments. Okay, let me explain something. We're guys. We're going to rate girls like on a 1 to 10 basis. We're going to rate girls on what we think. And some guys, they do, they basically say an objectively gorgeous girl that's like an 8 or a 9 is like a 4 or a 3 or something like that. And yeah, it's usually just to get that kind of engagement. But some guys will do that because they're genuinely, they're genuinely grading these girls or numbering these girls at what they genuinely believe they are. And so to say that all guys do that to just get that negative engagement, that really shows an element of butthurtness on the writer of the article there. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Exactly. And let's face it, if you are a female posting pictures of yourself, you are doing it to farm positive attention.
Oh
The
yeah.
guys see that and they give you negative attention so as to get your goat and get you to react. And
Mhm.
it's just this is basic human behavior. Get over it. If you don't like something somebody posted, you can block them. See how much I care. But don't pretend you're pictures of yourself for any reason other than to get positive attention.
Exactly.
All right, why the red pill movement is attractive to rejects. Of all the platforms, I'd say X is the most attractive to these lonely souls. X has a lot of niche communities, conservative and leftist groups, for example, the trans community, hell, even the pro anorexia believers have their own little corner on X. The former Bird app of it and insecure groups of people go hand in hand. X is about sharing your thoughts and unpopular opinions without repercussions, at least when you are anonymous. Unlike in real life, these rejects can let out their frustrations on others and scold whomever they disagree with. Yes, that's true. That's also called free speech. And as for the whole you're posting on an anonymous account thing, anybody who is smart in today's day and age, if they have controversial views, they're going to post on an anonymous account. Why?
Okay.
Because if you post with your real name and picture, some idiot is going to call your employer, complain, and your job could be in jeopardy. Will it necessarily be? No, but really, there's no benefit to showing your name and real picture unless you actually want to get stalked by crazy individuals who disagree with you.
Right.
And further, so what if it's posted from an anonymous account? It's either true or not. You clearly care enough about this that you're actually writing a whole article about it. All right, the bonus that they get is the dopamine hits while doing so and a nice sense of superiority when they get likes, a false boost in confidence. What's more is that they actually draw in the people who agree with them. For once, they connect with like-minded individuals who can share their pain and acknowledge them. Okay, and again, this doesn't apply to the red pill community. It applies to feminists on Twitter. It applies to the girls who are posting selfies to get positive attention, the attractive girls and the mid girls or even the ugly girls. Anybody who is on X and is posting things is doing so because they want engagement and feedback and to connect with like-minded people.
Exactly.
Nice work, Sherlock. The red pill different. This says nothing about them as individuals. That they are not unique from other people in this regard. And of course, there's Pearl sporting one of her
Yes,
women's
of course.
vote shirts.
Now, I do want to go more into this.
Okay.
Because again, guys are gonna rate girls, or they're not gonna grade them. They're gonna rate them, and it's just something that we do. It's just something that's gonna happen. Now, I'm not trying to puff myself up, but I'm always going to give a genuine rating. I'm always going to give a genuine rating. Like, okay, so to Pearl right there, I would say that she is a 5. I would say that she is like a 5, maybe a 6 because she plays an instrument. I don't know. And I mean, I do this and I do it honestly because I'm not going to lie. I married the literal definition of what would be considered a 2. Okay, I did that, and I deserve to be shamed for it. I know Pearl would considerably be an upgrade from what I married, but I'm going to tell the truth, and I'm going to say, what I think is the truth. And there's a lot of guys that will do that on top of that, and so to say that every guy doing that is just being an ass is really just a sign of butthurtness on just on anyone who's going to accuse that. And I know what some people are thinking. I mean, like Night Shift, is there anyone that you would consider an 8, 9, or a 10? Of course there is. In fact, a good example of that would be there's actually someone on TikTok called Musically Chrissy. I would consider her to be 9 or a 9 or a 10, and I would definitely consider I would definitely say anyone watching, look her up. She is amazing. But she kind of does a Disney princess thing where she actually sings like different songs like from Disney and whatnot. But I would consider her to be a 9 or I dare say a 10. So, but I'm being completely honest. I will never simp for her. I will never simp for anyone. But that is my honest rating of her. So, I mean, to say that we're all doing that, it is. It's a real butthurt move, and it's ridiculous. So, Please continue, by the way. Please
Fair
continue.
enough.
But I just wanted
I'm
to
not
throw
going to
that in.
rate Pearl at the moment. Let's just say I just finished my first glass of wine and poured another. Maybe I'll come back before we're done and see how
All right.
I'm feeling
Yeah.
on the rating department. But
Sounds
all
good.
right, so we know that misery loves company. Sad people
Mm-hmm.
desire empathy from others and want people to genuinely understand their emotional state. It's easier to be around someone who can relate to their experiences on a deep level. Okay, fair enough. Again, most people on X or other social media platforms are looking to connect with like-minded people. That says nothing about whether they're not. The red pill is not unique in this regard. Writer Gabrielle Gatta explains it best in her own words. I also suspect when someone is feeling down, it's more comfortable to be around those feeling similarly down because there's a familiarity in the lower energy, an emotional comfort zone. There's also peace knowing that equally down person won't try to pull one out of the misery because they'll likely want to wallow in it together. Thus, the Andrew Tate fans who have been feeling lonely for a while finally gained friends on X who agree that they're not the problem. Women are. Okay? If whether men are the problem or women are the problem, that's an argument to be made and supported with facts. If you think men are objectively the problem, present your argument. If you think women are objectively the problem, present your argument. And we'll decide whoever's made the better case is correct. Whether or not angry men get into this space because they've been hurt and they're looking for answers, you know what? That happens to be true. Many men find the space because they were living a blue-pilled existence where they thought if they were nice guys and they did everything right, women would respect them and they'd have a successful marriage. It didn't work out, so they discovered the space. Now, that all could be true, but again, the red pill is either true or it's false, and that stands on the quality of the arguments made in favor of it. Even if it is the case that most of Andrew Tate's fans are just lonely guys who found people who are like-minded. And again, I think Tate is an even worse grifter than Pearl, so I'm not on his team by any stretch of the imagination.
Oh,
but even if that's true, says nothing about whether or not they're right. Maybe they want to hear that women are the problem and not them. That could be true. Women likely want to hear that men are the problem or not them. No one wants to hear they are the problem. The question is, what is the argument they've made in favor of their position? Does it succeed? If you disagree with what Andrew Tate has to say about women and them being the problem, then actually address what he says. Don't just keep insulting him and his followers. The shaming message is ringing hollow. Men know we're going to get shamed no matter what. It's not you. I am not the least bit inclined to think I should reject my viewpoint just because you think I must be a loser if I accept the viewpoint. They all get angry and bitter together. These trad red pillars establish their opinions as truths, stick to black and white concepts with little room for nuance, and form circle jerks. Okay, just being totally honest, just about any viewpoint, political, social, or otherwise,
yeah,
people tend to get together and form circle jerks. I'm sorry,
exactly.
that happens. Doesn't mean that any viewpoint is as good as any other. No, and I don't believe the red pill is black and white. As I explained in my long response to Jamie Hanshaw and Adam Lane Smith, the red pill doesn't say all men and all women in an identical set of circumstances will always act in a certain way. What it does say is you understand male and female nature, and this is how men and women tend to behave. Look at any man or woman you know in the real world. Look at the decisions they made, and you'll see that the red pill is the best paradigm for interpreting what they did and what they're likely to do in the future. Now, that if you've got a better paradigm that you think better explains male and female nature in general, by all means, let's hear it. But strangely, the people who criticize the red pill talk a lot about how stupid red pill men are, how hurt they are, all the problems they have as individuals. Never once do they actually address the arguments being made. And that tells you something.
Exactly. Wow.
Okay, this binary way of thinking becomes their modus operandi, where they divide society into two categories: those who have taken the red pill and those who are deluded, anyone who disagrees with their takes. All this gives the illusion of unanimity, a feeling that most people in the modern era desperately crave. Well, the law of non-contradiction is either A or not A. Either a position is true or it is false. To say anyone who doesn't, I think I would not say everyone is either red pill or blue pilled. I do think there is more nuance in that some have not looked very thoroughly into the issue. Some have no strong feelings one way or another. But once you actually examine the issue and seek to understand it, you either accept the viewpoint or you don't. So in that regard, one must either A or not A. The position is either true or false. You can call that a black and white way of thinking, if you will. That's just a reflection of reality. Positions are true or false, and you either subscribe to the true position, subscribe to the false position, or you're disinterested in the answer, or somewhere in between. But the red pill's either right or it's wrong. So you might wonder how I can tell these people struggle with their self-worth. Most times, these individuals remain unconscious of their own behaviors and thoughts. They operate on the survival paradigm of shame, fear, anger, desire, or hopelessness. Their tweets, for the most part, are automatic, and herein lies the obvious problem. Many of their posts are simply projections. Oh boy.
Oh God, here we go.
Now, yes, here's the thing. When you insult other people, it is well known that you tend to project your own insecurities onto other people. In other words, people who call, like, let's take not incel as a community, but incel as a common insult. In today's day and age, if you are a man and you disagree with the mainstream public narratives of feminism, socialism, what have you, post a tweet. Anybody who follows me on Twitter or excuse me, X, or has ever liked my YouTube videos or has ever said anything that even remotely, one way or another, agrees with something I've said, you've probably been called an incel at some point on the internet. Have you not? Night Shift, I have been called an incel on many occasions. You have as well.
Oh, right? Yeah, absolutely.
It's a common insult. Basically, you said a viewpoint I don't like, so you must not be able to get laid. I bet girls think you're ugly and you can never have sex. I mean, it's the biggest insult on the internet right now. In all likelihood, I think what she says here is correct. Most people who say this are projecting. Do you really think people who are getting laid left and right all the time, the Chad Maximums and James Bonds of the world, spend their free time on the internet making fun of people who can't get laid? Of course not.
Probably not. No.
So, yes, she is absolutely right. People who tend to insult others are usually projecting their own insecurities onto others. However, the red pill is not about projecting anything onto anyone. It's about explaining male and female behavior. When she says, and here's a classic case of Spartan's law. Anytime a person who tries to accuse their opponent of having some kind of character flaw, the character flaw will inevitably apply to them as well.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why I'm of the opinion, and it's part of why I decided to call my channel My Two Cents. I'm here to give you my opinion about issues. I don't care if you're a great person or a horrible person. I care about the ideas you espouse and whether or not they're true or false. And I will engage that. And occasionally I will insult you for fun. Let's face it, everybody does. But I'm more concerned about what's true and what's false. Let's engage that. Call me, say whatever you want about how you think I live in my mother's basement and I'm a loser and I'm just projecting my insecurities on others. Fine. What I said is either true or false. Engage it. You're not going to get anywhere by insulting me. And the same thing is true here. So I dare say this Nicole Dominique is in fact projecting under her own insecurities onto red pillars when she says this, ironically enough.
Exactly.
I've witnessed this repeatedly in my 3 years on X. A woman shares a sweet post about her husband or boyfriend. Most comments she receives are positive, but some are from bitter people stating that they'll get separated soon because they're in the honeymoon phase. A few find a way to make it about them. Others make up stories like how the woman is only with her man because he's rich or good looking. All right, I'm just going to say here, women who post public pictures and sweet pictures about their husbands or boyfriends, it's not about their husband or boyfriend. It's about attention for themselves. Mm-hmm. Exactly. People post, if you have a social media account and all you post is about yourself, your life, pictures of yourself, pictures of your family, and I'm not talking about if you have a private account that you're using to share with friends and family. I'm talking about your average social media female who's posting public posts for anyone to see. Here's my husband. He's awesome. Here's my kids. They're awesome. Mm-hmm. She's posting those pictures because she wants other people to reinforce that her life is awesome. She truly believed her life was as awesome as she said it would. As she says it is, she would have no need to post it publicly for the world to see. I mean, come on.
Exactly.
I've taken to on X as of late. Anytime I come across a traditional conservative woman posting a modest selfie of herself, I post a little gif of Mr. Meeseeks from Rick and Morty, where Rick hits the Meeseeks box and Mr. Meeseeks appears and says, "I'm Mr. Meeseeks, look at me." Because that's exactly what you're doing. You're just saying, "I'm awesome, look at me." And you can say all you want. I just want to thank my husband, or I want to teach other women how to dress modestly, or I want to do this, I want to do that. Get real. We all see what you're doing. You are posting pictures of yourself because you want positive reinforcement and you want attention. And you know what? Good for you. It's a free country. Do what you want. Just don't pretend you're doing anything else.
Exactly. No, I totally get that.
All right. There were times when I'd look at the past tweets of these angry men and women out of curiosity. I did this to confirm my suspicions of them projecting when someone displaces their innermost thoughts or feelings onto another. Instead of recognizing their own negative traits or unwanted emotions, they see it in other people. It didn't take long for me to find these miserable people's previous posts about their divorce, breakup, and loneliness. And there it is, I would think to myself. And again, maybe these people are miserable and that's how they found the space. Doesn't mean anything they said is true or false. And further, if you really are someone who posts a picture of your husband because you just genuinely want to share how happy you are, you would totally ignore these tweets where men say, they're just ripping on you for whatever reason. You wouldn't care. The fact that you even felt the need to engage shows that it struck a nerve. Like you really aren't as happy as you say you are, and you're not trying to convince them. You're trying to convince yourself.
Exactly.
As I've said many times,
I do want to mention this to JC Armitage. Yeah, guys do that too. It is just as vain. It is just as it's just as vain as women are being when they do it too. When they're it's not that one. It's the last one. It's like don't males on social media also post pics of their spouses and kids too? They do, and they're either doing it because they're being just as vain because they want they want that reinforcement from people as well, which is annoying. It's annoying too. It's just as annoying as women do it. Is when women do it, or it is something like genuinely like I'm proud to have my family and whatnot. But yeah, it's just, I mean, in some cases it is them just basically doing what women do, and yeah, it's just as vain and it's just as annoying. So make no mistake on that.
Mm-hmm. And again, if they post it publicly, they're just trying to get attention. That's exactly. Not wrong. I mean, anybody who posts something on the internet is trying to get attention. Yeah. Thanks a lot, Captain Obvious. The point is, why are you trying to get attention and for what?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so allow me to give you an example. Right-wing commentator Pearl Davis. Okay, I don't really want to talk much about Pearl.
On Piers Morgan, yeah.
But we'll go through this, okay? Pearl Davis is known for her strong, divisive stances on gender discourse. She's made it her mission to demean women, and her advice to men is incredibly reckless. Okay, I think, again, I've said it before. I think Pearl's marketing strategy is say the most extreme things possible to get attention. And get attention she does. Now, do I think Pearl really goes... when she tries to normalize infidelity or the 16-year-olds are hotter than 26-year-old chicks, does she really believe those things? I doubt it. I think she says it because it's extreme and she knows it's going to get clicks.
Oh, she's definitely an actor. She's definitely an actor. She's an actor. Make no mistake.
Her constant need to shame women has others suspecting that her actions stem from insecurity and that her hateful words towards other females mirror how she feels about herself. Recently, in an hour and a half long expose, Pearl was uploaded about Jay Aubrey, and there's a video about Pearl talking about why she listens to Manosphere content, and her answer was that, "I have one answer for you, low self-esteem," she says. "From a young age, I haven't thought highly of myself. I never thought that I deserved a lot, to be honest. I never thought of myself as a queen, and I never thought of myself super highly. From a young age, I was what you call humbled, okay? Most of my friends were generally more attractive than me. I was never the hot friend. Most guys, even the average guys, they wouldn't ask me about my friend list. And if that didn't work, they would ask me about my friend list. And if that didn't work out, then they would come crawling to me. So yeah, I would say low self-esteem." Okay, fair enough. Maybe that's why Pearl got into the space. Again, what she says is either true or false. A lot of the stuff she said that's false, we can engage and explain why it's false. A lot of the stuff that she said is true, we can engage and explain why it's true. But other than the fact that she's charging outrageous amounts of money to a largely male audience, she's not really helping reform women like you would think. She's getting paid to tell men what they want to hear. And frankly, I think the men giving her these insanely high amounts of money are not getting really any value out of it. I also think there's pretty good evidence that she wants to use her platform to try and court a higher status mate of her own. She says she wants to be married. So we can point all that out, but the content she makes is either true or false. You could just engage that. Like other men who frequent the manosphere echo chamber on social media, Pearl listens to alpha male content because she lacks confidence. When you're constantly being rejected or can't find love, you begin to doubt your own worth and attractiveness. You start to wonder if there's something wrong with you. For a lot of people, this negative outlook develops into bed. Suddenly it becomes easier to blame other people for their lack of success. Okay. And again, the red pill is not about blame. It's about how men and women tend to behave. Some people, especially those that go down the black pill self-identified incel route, conclude that because of men's and women's nature in this modern age, the game is hopelessly rigged against them and they have no hope of ever being happy, so they should just wallow and smoke weed and play video games. I've said before in the past, I explicitly reject that idea. I think that is a loser's mindset. But again, that's not the red pill. That's just the red pill is male and female nature. And further, those guys are either right or wrong. You can engage their ideas if you want, but how they came into the space or how they came to that viewpoint is irrelevant to whether or not their viewpoint is true.
Right.
I believe it was C.S. Lewis who famously said, we must first show that a man is wrong before we start explaining why he is wrong.
Exactly. Good wisdom from him, too.
Indeed. People may think I'm being harsh with this article, but since some red pill individuals like to tweet about being attracted to minors and perpetuate harmful narratives, okay, that's just the red pill community by and large is not tweeting about this crap. Like anything, you can find any community, you can search through it and you'll find some weirdo that posted something. And it's the tendency of people on the other side to try and take that one most extreme example and paint the entire community as it. You're not helping yourself. It's no more helpful than saying things like all Muslims are terrorists. You're not going to get anywhere in a meaningful dialogue about a subject. I mean, it may be the case that even if it were the case that most Muslims are terrorists, which I'm not saying, that's just even if that's the case, that I can't have a meaningful argument about whether Islam is true or false just by you have to actually address the ideas, and as is the case with the red pill or any other topic for that matter.
Right.
I don't feel bad about calling their behavior out. Of course, not everyone in the community is toxic. I'm merely talking about the ones that have gone off the deep end. Date psych tweets. These niche online communities offer a sense of refuge and belonging for individuals who constantly experience rejection, loneliness offline. The manosphere community has taken on a resemblance to the leftist groups they always critique. Instead of bettering themselves, they've embraced the victim mindset. Okay, fair enough. I would say that is definitely true, especially of those who self-identify as black pill or incels. Fair enough. But that's not the community at large. And this is true of anyone in any community, notably feminists. And of course, the women themselves who are mad about the fact that men are no longer pursuing them. What if I said, and I suspect this is partially true, what if I said that the people at Evie magazine are just mad that fewer and fewer men are pursuing them because, and they want men to get back in the game and start doing more for them like they used to 10 years ago? Maybe that's the only reason she wrote this article. You know, I could be right in my assessment, but that wouldn't actually say anything about whether or not what she wrote there is true.
Exactly.
If you want to say the movement is wrong, you got to actually address the ideas. And that's and this article doesn't do that. Anything she says about men in the manosphere or the red pill community in this article could just as justly be applied to her. And it could very well be the case that she is projecting her own insecurities, her own reasons for being online, blogging, members of the TradCon Evie magazine community she's a part of, that is she doing this? So
no, exactly. No, absolutely. No, that's 100% true. I get that. It's like,
as JC Armitage says, can we just call Pearl's business operation only simps, but allegedly without the nudes? Fair enough. Fair enough.
Is anyone going to pay for nude photos of just Pearly things, though? I mean, let's think about that for a second.
Why am I going to pay for nude photos at all, considering we now have AI generation where you can get an objectively perfect female body for absolutely free using AI generation?
Oh, nice. Yeah, no. Looks like OnlyFans is on its way out now too. Nice.
Indeed, I dare say the days of OnlyFans are numbered.
Mhm.
Especially AI generated women are going to put an end to the porn industry, which
Amen.
I can't say is a bad thing.
No, it's yeah, it's gonna be a slaughter for the porn industry. Honestly, it's gonna be them getting slaughtered by the AI industry.
All right, so getting on to the stream I promised 2 weeks ago. This tweet was brought up on the Hangout stream 2 weeks ago from the account Catholic Orca, and it's referring to the classic 1990s Disney cartoon Beauty and the Beast. It says, Gaston was a village hero. He provided food, rejected thoughts for a respectable woman, wanted to start a family, died protecting the village from a werewolf and his Stockholm Syndrome prisoner. # justice for Gaston. At the time, I said to viewers, if I were to do a stream where I did a red pill analysis of the characters and relationship themes in the movie Beauty and the Beast, would it interest you? And it got overwhelmingly, for those who responded to my survey on X, they said yes, they want to hear it. So this is going to be kind of a shooting the shit type discussion between myself and Night Shift. We're going to ask the question. Like, at the end of the day, Beauty and the Beast is a children's movie. It wasn't meant to teach you any profound lessons about life. However, I would say any film that appeals broadly to a wide audience and a lot of people come to love, generally it's because whether people consciously realize it or not, it contains a lot of true things about the human experience. Because if it didn't, you wouldn't relate to it or wouldn't enjoy the movie.
Right.
And JC Armitage says, will you also criticize the terrible live action remake? In part, the live action, we will bring up the live action remake in this. So how I want to start this discussion. The movie Beauty and the Beast, of course, is set in a time period, probably the 15 or 1600s in France, somewhere where there is this monarchy that rules over a relatively small portion of territory. And you learn that the narrative at the beginning, there's this prince who lives there, and he's arrogant and cocky and generally a terrible person. He has everything his heart desires, but he's selfish. What is it? He's selfish, something, and unkind.
Spoiled and unkind, yeah.
Yeah, selfish, spoiled, and unkind. One night, old beggar woman comes to the castle and offers him a rose in exchange for shelter from the storm. And he says, ha, you're some ugly old lady. Why should I help you? Go away. And she warns him, do not be deceived by appearances, for beauty is found within. And when he dismissed her again, the old woman transforms into a gorgeous enchantress. And he's like, oh no, I'm so sorry. But it was too late, for she had seen there was no love in his heart. And as punishment, she casts a spell on him and turns him into a beast, which is essentially head of a buffalo, horns of a ram, mouth of a lion, tail of a wolf. Something like
exactly,
that.
Yeah.
Has anyone actually stopped to ask what is the beast exactly? I mean, has anyone done a more detailed analysis than that?
I don't know, honestly. That'd be really cool to see what all goes into him. I think it's funny because I've actually seen like weightlifter memes or whatnot that basically show like the beast turning back into a human, and like the once beast, now prince, is like, oh shit, I lost all my gains.
Now, Solo Knight brings up the first main plot inconsistency in this film. He says, what 11-year-old would let a random woman stay in his house? Now, here's something that when I was a kid, I didn't figure this out, but watching it again as an adult, you realize. She says, so finishing off the narrative, he's cursed. There's a spell on him, and all the people in the castle are cursed. Basically, whatever you did in the castle, you somehow become whatever it is you did. Lumiere, one of the main characters, lit the candles, so he becomes a candelabra, and the butler becomes a clock. The cook becomes a teapot. Whatever else.
Right.
But she says, and the rose is truly an enchanted rose, which will bloom every day until his 21st year. And if he can learn to find a woman who and earn her and love her and earn her love in return, the spell will be broken. And if not, he will be doomed to remain a beast for all time. Well, Solo Knight points out the rose supposedly blooms until he's 21. Later on in the movie, they say they've been at the castle for 10 years. That means that despite the fact that in the illustration at the beginning of the movie, the prince looks like he's already an adult, he only would have been an 11-year-old kid when that happens. And Solo Knight saying, the beast did nothing wrong. What 11-year-old will let a random woman stay in his house?
No, good point. Good point. Plus, I do want to go over the original story, because in the original story, they did make movies about the original story for Beauty and the Beast, and the original story is very different than the movie version. And even in the movies that they have done for the original story of Beauty and the Beast, they never actually explain. I've never really seen them do a plot of where they explain how he's the Beast. So I would like to go over that at some point in this video, but please continue.
Okay, so on the point I was going to make, they did somewhat fix this in the live action remake in that they got rid of the rose blooms until his 21st year part. And it admits that he clearly is an adult when this happens. And it just says blooms would bloom for many years and until the rose. It doesn't, in the live action remake, they didn't say until his 21st year. They just said it would bloom for a long time. And he essentially had until the rose wilts. And it doesn't really say how long. So fair enough. Right. I would say that that's a plot inconsistency that Disney at least picked up on and fixed in the live remake.
Right. Yes.
We'll assume for the sake of argument that as it was shown in the illustration at the beginning of the cartoon, the prince was in fact an adult or at least a teenager when this occurred. Therefore, he turned away a beggar woman because he was selfish. Now, in fairness, I have to say I agree with Solo Knight. He's not obligated to let people into his house, but it could be the case that this beautiful enchantress, whoever she was, could see into his heart and saw that he was just generally a scummy person and decided to punish him for it. Such is a world in which enchantresses inhabit. but whatever, let's move on. So the story now picks up 10 years later, whatever, in this little village called, you know what, do they ever give the village a name?
No, they don't.
Okay. In a village where this guy named Maurice, the inventor, lives. And let's see if I can find a picture of it here.
Actually, to be fair, in the original story, they never really gave it a name either. So, kind of hard to tell.
Here, I'm trying to get the picture to open in a new link so that it's a bigger picture. Hang on. All right. So in our remote little village that was one that presumably falls under the monarchy that this prince lived in. And here's another plot inconsistency in the cartoon. Everyone asked the question, did all the people in this village just forget about their prince that was ruling over them, or what was the deal there? Now, in the live action remake, they fixed this, and they say specifically that the enchantress also erased from the minds of the villagers who their king was, and made it impossible for them to remember. So that, I guess, I don't think that entirely fixes the issue, but whatever. It's one way or another, magically or otherwise, the people living in this village have just magically forgotten that they are living under a monarchy and that this prince is out there. He's living in this castle by himself, turned into a beast. And we have a little society living in this town where we have at least a few different characters. You've got Maurice the inventor, Belle's father. You've got Belle, who I believe is 17 canonically, or has just come of age in this town. You've got, of course, the previously mentioned character Gaston, who is the Chad Maximum of this village. He's the tallest, strongest, most handsome man in the village. There are at least 3 other young women who appear to be blonde triplets who fall all over Gaston. You've got Gaston's male simp adorer, LeFou, and then you've got everyone else in the village, none of whom get very detailed. All we know is that everybody in the village goes about their day. Everybody agrees Belle is the prettiest girl in town, but she's also a little bit odd because she likes to read and think, and she's an early feminist, I suppose. She wants to be more than just a housewife. And
well, it could be worse. It could be worse. I mean, they could see a woman reading, and it could be like, witch, we must burn the witch at the stake. It could be worse.
Yeah, it could absolutely be worse. But now here we get into our first big red pill thing that I think is adequately portrayed in this village, whether the authors of Disney realized it or not. Certainly no one was talking about the red pill in 1991. Is that when this came out?
Thank God. No, they weren't. No.
Yeah, but I think there's something that's accurately captured. Hypergamy exists and is the primary female sexual strategy. It always has been since the beginning of time. What is hypergamy? Women are naturally drawn in their set of circumstances to seek out the male that is, number one, most able to provide them the strongest, healthiest children, and two, is best able to protect and provide for them. Now, whatever you think of Gaston, let's pull up Gaston's picture again here. Whatever you think of Gaston, Gaston clearly is the alpha male in this situation. He's the tallest, strongest, most good-looking guy. He's also the greatest hunter in the village, which they pointed out. I think in the live-action version, they say he's a veteran of some sort of war. Bottom line, he's both the most genetically advantageous candidate for women. All the women in the village inherently recognize that he is the most likely male to give them the strongest, healthiest children. And two, of everyone in this village, and admittedly, it's a small dating market, if you will, of all the men in the village, he is probably the best able to protect and provide and give them the most comfortable life possible. Now,
at first glance, yes.
Yeah, at first glance, whatever you think of him and his personality, it makes sense based on understanding female hypergamy that most women in the village would be most attracted to him. Now, I think in a more traditional setting, what people don't realize about hypergamy, and a lot of people say, well, if hypergamy is the case, how come in a setting like it, historically, men and women manage to get married, men who are not alpha males manage to get married? The answer is because if women collectively decide, I am not going to have sex until I get married, I am absolutely set on remaining a virgin until I get married, and no guy can sweet talk me no matter how handsome he is. If all the women do that, then even Chad Maximum or Gaston or whatever you want to call him, even if every woman wants to marry him, he realizes he's not going to get any unless he settles down. That thereby despite the fact that his main sexual strategy is polygamy, which is pursue whatever strategy allows him to have sex with the most women. If the most women say, I'm not having sex until we get married, his strategy for getting sex with the most women is still going to be marry one woman and have sex with her, which will naturally lead him to be far more selective than he otherwise would be and pick the highest value woman, however he defines that. Once they pair off, the women all cry because Chad Maximum is no longer available, but realizing he's no longer an option, they then move on to the next Chaddest Maximum, if you will, and so on and so forth. The majority of the population pairing off and becoming couples because of the chemical process of pair bonding. When a man and a woman have sex and have sex regularly, everyone is able to achieve a happy state of affairs, or at least semi happy, as happy as one can expect for their own lot in life under this paradigm. Of course, I think it is fair to point out that whatever the morals of the day, based on how the blonde bimbos are going after Gaston, despite the fact that Gaston wants to marry Belle, I think it is probably a safe bet that if the bimbos are willing to sleep with him, he is probably banging them on the regular, even though he doesn't actually want to marry them.
Yeah, true.
And I would say this showcases another aspect. This would again showcase the truth of the fact that the male primary sexual nature is polygamy. Men, absent moral, legal, or societal restraints, tend to pursue whatever strategy allows them to have sex with the highest number of women. And it's why women struggle to grasp the fact that if a man is willing to have sex with you, this says absolutely nothing about whether or not he sees you as marriage material or he wants to marry you. When it comes to the question, ask any man at random, do you want to have sex with that woman? 90% of the time, the answer is going to be yes, even if she's totally hideous. Why? Because the male reproductive strategy is have sex with as many women as possible, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Right. The more women you have sex with, the greater the chance those women have your children. The more children you have, the greater the chance your genes are passed on to the next generation. Now, granted, even if you're the most handsome Chad Maximum, you can have sex with both the most beautiful woman and the ugliest woman. naturally, if you're going to settle down, you're going to gravitate towards the most beautiful woman. But at the same time, having sex with the ugliest woman can't hurt your chances of having more children and passing on your genes to the next generation.
Very true. Yes.
So this goes to show, whatever his dalliances with the other women in the town, Gaston wants to marry Belle because she is the most beautiful girl in town, and he values people strictly on the basis of beauty, which proves, of course, he's a shallow individual and naturally sets the audience against him as a villain type character.
Right.
Now, however, Night Shift and I talked about this before we got started, and I can't help but point this out. Gaston, for all his fluff of being the biggest alpha male, the Chad maximum of this little village, Gaston is a simp. Why do I say that? Because when rejected by Belle, what does he do? He just continues to chase her and chase her and chase her and do whatever he thinks is going to get Belle to fall in love with him. I think of that at the beginning where he's first approached Belle, yada yada, let's go look at my trophy. She says she doesn't want to. She's got to go help her father. And Gaston's loyal follower LeFou is like, that crazy old guy, he can't do anything right. And him and Gaston start laughing. And then Belle's like, don't talk about my father that way. And then immediately Gaston's demeanor changes and he hits LeFou and he's like, yeah, don't talk about her father that way.
Exactly.
Saying, he immediately changes his demeanor and says what he thinks Belle wants to hear because he wants Belle to like him. At the end of the day, Gaston, for all his confidence, he's a simp. He's a real alpha male, someone who is confident in himself and his worth, is not going to go chasing after a girl who rejects him. He's going to move on to the next woman. So
exactly.
And honestly, stepping out of the realm of fantasy for a minute, assuming this were a real scenario, remove all the magic, the beast, everything. Assume this is just a village, and the Belle, Gaston, these are all real people. I strongly suspect, Belle knows from the start Gaston wants to marry her because he thinks she's the most beautiful girl in town, and she even admits to her father she thinks he's handsome. This goes to show, like, women cannot control on a base level who they're attracted to any more than men can. She innately recognizes he is a genetically superior candidate, and she's at least physically attracted to him in that regard. I seriously doubt if Gaston had suddenly said, okay, Belle, that's cool, I'm going to go marry that blonde bimbo over there, and just like that, stop showing her any attention. I guarantee she would suddenly be like, hey, wait a minute, I thought I was the most beautiful girl in town. And whether she decided to marry him or not, it would have an effect on her. So for anyone thinking about female psychology and how to attract women, let me assure you, after a woman rejects you, trying harder to get her to like you is a surefire way for her not to be attracted to you.
Exactly.
All right, moving on in the story. So, of course, we get to, give me to choke down a little more wine. Excuse me. So, moving on in the story, her father goes off on his quest to showcase his new invention, gets lost in the woods, chased by some wolves, ends up at the Beast Castle. And here we get to kind of the biggest dick move in the entire story, in my opinion, because her father Maurice has just been attacked by wolves. And of course, he is technically trespassing on the Beast Castle. But let's face it, if you were just rapidly attacked by wolves that could have killed you, would you have not trespassed in order to save your life? I think I probably would have, as would everyone else.
Probably, yeah.
In fairness, he knocks on the door and says, hello, is anyone there? I don't mean to intrude, but, I'm lost and I need some help. Can you help me out? The beast servants, Lumiere in particular, graciously says, of course, dude, you're welcome here. Come on in, sit by the fire. Let's have some hot tea. And of course, having met no one else, you can't particularly blame him for thinking he's welcome, considering the fact that they invite him in. The beast, of course, then shows up and says, you're not welcome here. Get out, throws him in his jail. Which, in fairness, Maurice is trespassing on the beast property. But you can't particularly blame Maurice for thinking he was welcome, given the beast's own staff said, come on in, buddy, you're welcome here.
And I here's the thing. I'm going to agree with you on that. I think the beast actually would have been more sympathetic had he not thrown him in a jail, but instead basically been like, no, you're not welcome here, get out. And he basically just thrown him out, like outside the castle instead of throwing him in like a dungeon, because throwing him in a dungeon just kind of like ups the asshole factor a little bit. But I don't know. I guess that's up to the interpretation of the audience.
Mm-hmm. Now, in fairness, the original version of this story, I believe what actually happens, Belle's father shows up at the castle. The beast, in fact, grants him hospitality, but then on his way out, he picks a rose for Belle. Oh, you're stealing my rose! Get into jail. And he's like,
and yes, that is what happens. I do kind of want to explain, because again, in the original story, or like when they do show like cinematic versions of the original story, it kind of makes the beast look a little assholish too, because like, you know, like, you're stealing one of my roses, you must die. And it doesn't really explain like the beast's attachment to the roses and why they're so important. It doesn't explain that. It does explain that in the original book, but it doesn't explain that in like the movies or like the modern adaptations. And that's something else I kind of wanted to go in, but we can continue.
All right, continue. So, of course, our main protagonist, the Beast, has been formally introduced at this point in the story, and he's a total asshole, just bitter from living in the castle, being a beast, and he's going to take it out on this old man who just wandered into his castle.
Yeah.
Belle, of course, goes and finds him, begs the Beast, let my father go. The Beast is, and she says, she offers, you know, take me instead of my father. And the Beast is, of course, aroused by this idea, because he knows on some level, he doesn't really think at this point Belle's going to fall in love with him, but he also knows the time that the flower is going to wilt is coming close. And if I have a woman living in my house, at least the possibility is there that she could break the spell. And of course, all Lumiere in particular, all the other servants think the same. But he says, yeah, you got to promise to stay here forever, but I'll let your father go if you stay. Now, her father, rightly in my opinion, says, Belle, I'm an old man. I've lived my life. Go be free. Just let me die here. And if I were her father, I've said the exact same thing. For whatever reason, Belle agrees to it. Father gets thrown out, gone to the village, and Belle is now trapped in the castle. Now, here, I think, is another part where some red pill wisdom shows through, regardless of what the people at Disney were trying to showcase. Because a lot of what this film is allegedly trying to showcase is Gaston is beautiful on the outside, but ugly on the inside. The Beast is ugly on the outside, but will be shown to be beautiful on the inside, and that's why Belle loves him. Let me just point out, whatever his physical exterior and his bad attitude, the guy is a prince and he lives in an awesome castle.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not going to lie and say I think that has nothing to do with the fact that Belle ends up falling for him in the long term.
Yep.
I mean, suppose the Beast lived in a shack in the middle of the woods. Do you think Belle would have fallen for him quite so easily? Without
Probably
the whole
not.
be our guest, without all the dancing plates and spoons and, you know, awesomeness of living in a gigantic enchanted castle, you think the Beast's wealth and status had nothing to do with the fact that Belle falls for him in the long run?
Yeah, you got to.
Of course not. Again, showing that hypergamy shows through. And you know, here, this is just a note on the side. But what's funny? Did you ever see the documentary "The Tinder Swindler"?
Oh no. What was that about?
Okay, well, it was about this guy it was essentially, he was a scam artist that was ripping off women between the ages of 28 and 30 by pretending he was the heir to a diamond mine. He would meet women on Tinder, take them on private planes, get them to, and then eventually he'd show them pictures of like, I was beaten up and attacked. My father's in jail. I need you to help I need you to take out a credit card and pay my legal fees so that I can get my money back, and then I'll pay you right back. And then the woman would do this, and he'd use the money to go, you know, take another victim. But one of the girls in that documentary who fell for the Tinder Swindler talked about how Beauty and the Beast was her favorite movie, and she always saw herself as Belle, the small town girl wanting something more. I think that goes to show a lot of women who watched Beauty and the Beast as a child identify with Belle and hypergamously think that if they just wait long enough in life, they can score someone on the level of the Beast.
Right.
If this story were real, and of course magic's not real and all that, but if it's real in any kind of setting, the odds of this happening to Belle and it working out for her are incredibly low. The fact of the matter is, the vast majority of women are going to be stuck in the village their entire life and are going to have to pick from what's available to them. There is no prince in the castle waiting for the vast, vast majority of women. But that, of course, is part of why this story is fiction and not a reality.
True.
But fair enough to point that out. All right, so moving on, of course, we see that later the Beast goes on to save Belle from some wolves, indebting her to him. She starts to warm up to him. He warms up to her. He learns to be a gentleman. they have the iconic Beauty and the Beast song as they dance together, and the Beast falls in love with her and realizes, I love you, I can't keep you as my prisoner, so I'm going to let you go. And he lets her go, and she goes to save her father, where she goes home to find Gaston has basically arranged to have her father thrown into an asylum unless she agrees to marry him. Again, showing he is still, ironically, a simp. He cannot take no for an answer, and instead of moving on with his life and doing, he is willing to use force to make her be with him, which is, of course, not in any kind of. I can't imagine anyone actually wanting to be in a relationship that's coerced. However attracted you are to a person, do you really want to be in a relationship with someone that you know is only with you because at the point of a gun?
No, of course not.
But whatever. That just further solidifies Gaston in his position as a villain. He, of course, becomes aware of the Beast and can tell that Belle has feelings for him and says, all right, I know, to hell with this. We're going to go take care of this Beast that none of us can mysteriously remember, is because no one in the village remembered that there was a castle out there or a prince living out there.
Yeah, exactly.
I digress. They march off to battle to go kill the Beast. The Beast is heartbroken. He's lost Belle. He doesn't care. He tells his servants, just let them in. Let them kill me. My life's not worth living without Belle. Which kind of makes him a simp in some regards. But hey, the story goes on. Of course, Gaston and Bill and the Beast fight. When Gaston is faced with real danger, he proves himself a coward. He dies. The Beast is fatally wounded. Belle admits that she loves the Beast, and the spell is broken. He turns into a handsome prince, and they two live happily ever after in wealth.
Somehow that heals the knife wound.
Yeah, it's somehow heals the knife wound. But again, the Beast, despite losing his beastliness, becomes a handsome prince, a wealthy prince, and happens to be the man of highest status in the kingdom. Don't tell me that Belle fell in love with him solely for who he was on the inside.
Right, exactly.
Because allegedly that's what this is all about. Beauty is found within. It's not what you look like on the outside, it's who you are on the inside. Yet, ironically, the main red pill truth the movie Beauty and the Beast goes to show is that at the end of the day, Belle is hypergamous like any other, and she goes for the highest status man available, which turns out to be the Beast, who turns out to be a handsome prince who just happens to be the highest status person in the entire country. Gaston is, of course, angry that he's no longer the highest status person, but the two fight for the heart of Belle, and the winner takes her. So there's that. And despite whatever Disney was trying to tell, little girls everywhere learned, as we see from the Tinder Swindler, that they deserve more, and if they just wait, they will find their own prince in a charming castle. The reality being, most of them are going to have to settle for the men in their village, which, I really wish we could get character profiles of some of the other men living in the village, so we don't only have to consider, see if Belle had any options other than Gaston. But there, in a nutshell, is my red pill analysis of the quick tale Beauty and the Beast.
Exactly. No, I get that.
JC Armitage says, I was always under the impression that the reason no one went to confront the Beast because everyone who did got flatlined in the process. I mean, fair enough. It never really says if there are any other visitors to the castle in that time. I think during the Be Our Guest musical number, Lumiere says, 10 years we've been rusting and no one's ever visited or something of that nature. So he more or less implies no one else ever visited. I guess what would have happened to anyone else who visited? Presumably the Beast may have killed him. I don't know.
Maybe. I don't know.
Maybe.
And okay. So I did want to go into this. I did want to go into the original story of what was originally like, because like anyone who was claiming like Belle had Stockholm syndrome and whatnot, in the original story, it was not the same. And I did want to explain the original story of everything because, the Disney story, it did a good job of telling kind of a Stockholm syndrome-esque story about Belle, but that wasn't the original way it happened. And I did want to explain, what happened in the original story, because like we do have movies. There was actually a movie that came out with George C. Scott and his real life wife, where they played both, Belle and the Beast. And again, it basically it shows at the beginning of the movie. It doesn't show how the Beast became the Beast. It just shows Belle's father finding the Beast castle, and he doesn't see the Beast at the beginning, but he does go into the Beast castle and he finds like a meal that's prepared for him. And even in the story, it said that Belle's father in the story was like he waited for someone to come and invite him to dine. But when the clock struck midnight, he could wait no longer. And when he sat at the table, food magically floated towards his plate. But I mean, even though he was scared, he still ate it.
No, just quickly, wasn't it in the original version of the fairy tale? Isn't it not, unlike Disney's version where there are all these enchanted servants that essentially are the items in the castle? The castle essentially gives you whatever you want. Like he's sitting there and he imagines a meal, and suddenly the meal he imagined disappears. And then he imagines a bed, and suddenly like a bed appears.
It's never explained whether it's the castle or whether it's the Beast doing it. Like whether the Beast has magic and he's doing it. Let me explain the original story. Let me explain actually how it starts out, because the Enchantress does actually feature in the story. And in all honesty, I've always thought of my life. I know it's going to sound lame because it's going to sound like that girl in the Grifter story, how she always wanted to be like Belle. I've always thought of myself as like I've always considered Beauty and the Beast to kind of like be the story of my life. And it's not just because I consider myself, as less than attractive. It's not for just that. It is largely for the original story. And even after my marriage ended, I actually feel I still feel this way, and I feel it all the more. I feel all the more prevalent now. So in the original story, before the Beast was the Beast was okay. What did JC Armitage say?
We don't have to address it just yet, but I'll put this up. He says,
Okay.
Is it contradictory of me to think that, well, I do think the Disney princess mentality has done a lot of damage. I also think that these animated movies are mostly cinematic masterpieces. I would say no.
No, they are.
And the reason they are, though, is, again, like we just did a red pill analysis of Beauty and the Beast, and whether Disney realizes it or not, the way they portrayed the characters perfectly captures the realities of, in this case, hypergamy. Again, I don't think Belle fell for the Beast primarily because he was kind on the inside.
Right.
It was that in part, but it was also because it satisfied her need for adventure. He was the highest status person in the country, and he had ultimately, in the end, good looks, wealth, and status, the three things that women are naturally turned on by. So I think the reason it resonates so much with people is not because it teaches you a great moral lesson, but because it actually accurately depicts how people actually behave in the real world. So
yes, exactly.
I think that's really what makes them masterpieces. They contain within them red pill truth, whether that was Disney's intent or not. But continue, Night Shift.
Okay, so in the original story, and I agree, by the way, but in the original story, before the Beast was the Beast, he was originally a prince, like in the Disney film, but he was not a cruel person. He did not turn people away. He was actually a very kind, very caring person who was very generous himself, even to his own detriment at times. But he was a very kind person, even for being a high status royalty that he was. And at one time, I mean, he had a good rapport with his people. He was very kind to his people. His people, at least, back when they knew him, they were very fond of him. But at one point he met a beautiful young woman, or at least a woman that he thought was beautiful. And he got to know her. They hit it off, or at least he thought they hit it off. And he invited he fell in love with this young woman, and he thought that this young woman loved him. And so he invited her back to his castle. He basically was like, come back to my castle with me and we will live in happiness and love forever. And she was overjoyed to do that. And they went back to his castle. They had wonderful times, at least from his perspective, they were wonderful times. And they got to know each other, and they, at least from his perspective, they fell in love. He thought that she loved him, and he definitely loved her. And he would even give her things like the library. Basically, like this woman obviously wasn't Belle. But she did have a lot of Belle's interests. And one thing that she loved doing was reading. She was very fond of books. And so the Beast had the library built for her, and he had it stocked with books, and they would spend hours there reading together. And they would spend hours together there, just reading together and having a great time. What this woman also loved, and it came out that she loved flowers and roses. And so the beast had his masterwork done. He built the rose garden, and he did it for her. And again, he was generous to a detriment because it was costly, but he didn't care because he was doing it because he loved this woman and he thought that she loved him. And again, they would spend hours there frolicking and just having a wonderful time. And again, keep in mind that the rose garden was his masterwork. It was the thing he was most proud of building for this young woman. However, at one point in the introduction of the story, they did have an argument, they did have a fight, and the beast, he walked out of the room angry, he stormed out of the room angry at her, and they had a major argument. Of course, it hadn't got violent. He hadn't hit her or anything, but they had a major argument, and he walked out of the room and he left her. Later on, a few hours later, he came back and he tried to find her, but she was nowhere to be found. And what ended up happening is that he found out that she had abandoned him, that this woman had actually abandoned him. And it turned out that this woman was the enchantress. And he found this out later, but he found out that he had been abandoned by this woman that he loved, and he thought she loved him. And it turned out that she was an enchantress. But I think in the original story, it was like she was an enchantress with a heart of ice that could not feel love, that could not know love for a man. And he thought that she loved him, but she didn't. And she was basically and essentially kind of just using him for, just for emotional drainage, for energy drainage. And this angered him because, he thought this one, I loved this woman and I thought she loved me. And he was angered by that. And of course, who wouldn't be angered by, you fell in love with someone, it turns out they didn't even love you. And so, but yeah, it did. It turned out that she was the enchantress. And so what happened is that her magic was attached to his emotions, and the anger that he felt in his heart twisted his exterior, turning him into the beast. And because the rose garden was his master achievement, because, it was the thing he was the most proud of giving her, the roses were tied to, basically it was tied to his life force. So when Belle's father picked the rose, it essentially took that rose, killing it, and it drained his life force ever more, because like the roses were wilting, and when the roses wilted down, the beast would die. Basically, the beast would die when the roses were all in the rose garden, all wilted down to dead. So he would be dead too. And so it does explain why the beast got so angry when Belle's father picked the rose, because that essentially killed the rose, and it brought the beast that much further towards death. But that is the original story, is that it turns out the original woman that he fell in love with before Belle was indeed the enchantress who turned him into the beast. Even though it does kind of it does kind of make it sound like he turned himself into the beast because of his anger and whatnot. But I mean, like, who wouldn't be angry about that? But yeah, basically, that was the backstory of what happened. And I see it all the more prevalent in my life. That's the reason I connect with the story so well, is because the same exact thing happened to me. I thought I had met, in my ex-wife, I thought I had met my Belle. It turned out that my ex-wife was the enchantress with the heart of ice that I do not believe ever loved me, that I do not believe had any emotions for me. I don't believe she ever did. And so it does create a connection. I know it's going to sound lame to some people, but I do feel a connection to that story because of that. And I can kind of be empathetic to what the original Beast Prince went through in the original story, because the same thing, it essentially happened to me. But that is the original story. That is kind of how the whole thing originated. But then of course, Belle's father came, picked the rose. He got pissed because, picking that rose brought him that much closer to death. And of course, he met Belle because of that, because Belle decided to go to the castle in her father's stead. And you know, we all know the rest of the story. So, but yeah, that is the origin. That is the original origin of the story of Beauty and the Beast. So, yeah.
Interesting. I've never heard a telling of it with that much detail before. So,
Oh yeah.
interesting.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, that pretty much finishes up the stream. However, I do want a quick ad here. So I just quick did a stroll through my Twitter line, and I found an example of the Mr. Meeseeks tweet that I was mentioning before that I'm going to go ahead and share here. So this just came up in my timeline. This is a Twitter account called The Religious Hippie, @hippiereligious. She has a YouTube channel, and she's mostly does Catholic content, I guess. But she drew a lot of attention as of late because a lot of folks pointed out she posts a lot of selfies. And of course, her explanation for this was she is showing women on X how to be modest. And of course, and posts all kinds of pictures of herself publicly that anyone can see. The goal, of course, being to teach women how to be more Catholic and how more modest. But of course, you can see I've already posted my little GIF here. But see, who is the majority of people who are responding to her? Brandon, a dude. You are so pretty, Amber. Thank you. Alan, my new lock screen. CMBT Sports, an angel, clearly. FDNY, mellow dude. What a lovely woman. Carol, lovely sweater. Did you make it yourself? I love sweater season. Mike Hedman, I like it. Tyler, the warm weather penguin, cute. White rice supremacist. You look so gorgeous. Habibi, sorry for my English. I'm a fan of your videos, by the way. My name is Bilal. I like your videos already. Tell me this. Do you think that these pictures are primarily appealing to female followers who are like, wow, that's so attractive. I can dress modestly and be a better Catholic? Or
no,
do you think these are mostly male simps telling her she's so beautiful and wonderful, and she's posting because she wants people to tell her how beautiful and wonderful she is? I'm Mr. Meeseeks. Look at me. Okay, so my point, and again, you know, go ahead, post whatever you want. I really don't care. It's your life. Just don't pretend you're doing it for any reason other than to garner male attention and positive attention.
Farming the simps.
Indeed. You know what? For the heck of it, before we go here, so the stream's almost over, but for the heck of it, just to I'm gonna go ahead and play the Mr. Meeseeks song on the stream here. So hang on.
Excellent.
Let me get it queued up here.
Also, thank you for turning me on to that song. It's really good.
I have watched a lot of hilarious cartoons over the years. Family Guy, South Park, you know, when all of which were good in their heyday. Rick and Morty has got to be the funniest cartoon that has been made in a while.
Oh, yeah.
Hang on just a second.
I'm Mr. Meeseeks. Look at me. I'm Mr. Meeseeks. Yes, sir. You make a request. The Meeseeks fulfills the request, and then it stops existing. I'm Mr. Meeseeks. Look at me. I'm Mr. Meeseeks. Yes, sir. I have to fulfill my purpose so I can go away. So I can go away. Existence is big. Remember to square your shoulders, Jerry. Choke up on the clap. You know you gotta do both. Just choke up on the clap. I'm Mr. Meeseeks. Look at me. I'm Mr. Meeseeks. Yes, sir. You make a request. The Meeseeks fulfills the request, and then it stops existing. I'm Mr. Meeseeks. Look at me. I'm Mr. Meeseeks. Yes, sir. I have to fulfill my purpose so I can go away. So I can go away. Existence is basically stop. You mind if we get back to the task at hand? Meeseeks don't usually have to exist this long. It's getting weird. I'm Mr. Meeseeks. Look at me. I'm Mr. Meeseeks. Yes, sir. You make a request. The Meeseeks fulfills the request, and then it stops existing. I'm Mr. Meeseeks. Look at me. I'm Mr. Meeseeks. Yes, sir. I have to fulfill my purpose so I can go away. So I can go away. Existence is big. I can't take it anymore. I just wanna die. Just wanna die. We all wanna die. We're Meeseeks. Why did you even wrote me in seeks, fulfills the request, and then it stops existing. Mr. Me seeks, look at me, I'm Mr. Me seeks, yes sirree. I have to fulfill my purpose so I can go away. So I can go away. Existence is pain.
So for those who are unaware of what Mr. Meeseeks is, hopefully that song has given you somewhat of an idea.
Mhm.
Finishing off, just out of curiosity, but is there a different or better way here to show females how to dress more modest, assuming that's the intent, of course? You will have to ask the religious hippie.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that was kind of a fun, like I said, stream to
Oh yeah.
obviously mostly not serious topics, but hey, plenty of good things to say there.
Mhm.
So thanks everybody for tuning in. As always, be back next week for my regular weekly show. And as always, that is my 2 cents. Take it for what it's worth.